The dog days of summer are here. Temperatures are going up. That does not mean that hiking and backpacking have to take a back seat, though. It does mean we need to be a little more mindful while we're doing it. Today, let's go through and talk about tips we can do to do that safely so that we can do it again next time. With the recent news of the U.S. tourist who died in Greece last month, who were out hiking, a lot of eyes have turned toward, well, how do we recreate out in the outdoors when the temperatures have gone up? Covering this same subject, last week I went and filmed a 5-second spot for a national news network. It's Dr. Phil's Merritt Street Media, the network that he started recently. It was on their morning show. Just to kind of go through and talk about how we go out and hike safely. And I thought it was great content for you guys here. So let's cover all the bullet points that we didn't get to in our 5-minute segment. So covering a few tips so that we can more safely hike in the hotter weather. Right out the gate, the most important thing that we can really focus on is hydration. All too often, most of us are walking around in some state of dehydration just because of all the caffeine and carbonated drinks and stuff that we typically drink. Ideally, before I have a planned outing, I'm going to start preloading and prehydrating with water 2 to 3 days in advance to kind of get my fluid levels up before I'm out. And then while I'm out on the trail, I need to sort of constantly sip at water. I need to take plenty of water for the outing, or at least have a way to replenish that when it's out, whether it's filtration or purifiers. I'm kind of a fan of the Grails. I use those very often, and we want to constantly sort of sip instead of chugging water. I don't want to get to a spot where I'm just parched and then I chug all of my water, because our bodies can only absorb so many ounces of water per hour. And so I kind of just want to do sort of a constant sort of sip. And whenever I'm hiking with Topo, my rule of thumb is if I stop and drink, I'm at least offering her water, whether she takes it or not. Then, sticking along with the hydration theme, we need some way to go through and help replenish some of the electrolytes, whether it is the gels or the pre-made mixes that you just add water to, some of the tablets and powders, anything that's going to help get you some electrolytes back in your body. Do be mindful of the sugar content with some of these. And some of them have caffeine, some don't have caffeine. Just be mindful, if you're looking for options on these, go to your local cyclist shops and stuff. That's where I typically find the best selections. That or places like REI will also have something. And also, usually a good idea to pack some salty snacks that kind of go along with it. Just kind of give you that extra little pop from time to time. But ideally, we don't need to be surviving on just water when we're out in those extreme temperatures and exerting ourselves. So little electrolytes go a long way. Another important factor to pay attention to: loose, light-colored clothing, something that's going to breathe a lot and give you more airflow. It's going to help you out in the long run. The lighter colors seem to reflect the sunlight a lot more. You typically are less hot than you would be with darker clothing on. Cotton versus not cotton, the cotton stuff is going to stick and kind of be clammy against your skin. Some of that moisture wicking stuff, it's a preference thing for me at least. If I'm going to be out in the heat, I want something like that. It's also going to aid in giving me some coverage from the sun. I'm typically, if it's hot, more prone to longer sleeves and things like that. It's kind of the light, sort of arid, hiker hoodies, almost like the fishing shirts and stuff that'll give you some coverage from the UV. Goes a long way. And on that same subject for coverage, you guys can see I don't have hair, so I'm always in a big wide-brimmed hat and some form of a gaiter or buff around my neck that I can take and wet and give me that extra insulation from the sun with my hat, keep me from scorching my dome. But then also this wet cloth, whether it's a buff or just a straight cloth, kind of around these carotids and stuff, are going to help cool me down, bring down the core body temp. That's a big help. Another important tip is hiking in off-peak hours. Now, I don't mean peak from traffic, I mean peak from sun. When it's hot during the summer, I want to be on the trail when the sun comes up, and ideally, I want to be off the trail if it's at all possible 10 or 11 o'clock, or at least kind of bedding down and taking a break through those hottest hours of the day, noon at the worst case scenario. And then I really don't want to start back up again until probably around 4 or so, when things start cool back off, and then hike into the evening hours. But avoid those really hot times until you've built up some kind of tolerance and gotten yourself acclimated to the higher temperatures. And then while you're out and about actually hiking, take frequent breaks. Stop, take 5 or 10, sit down for a few minutes, get a little sip of something to drink. If you feel like you're getting too warm, pop your shoes off, put your feet down in some cool water. If you can get around a stream or a creek or a lake or something like that, just kind of lower that core body temp. And for those reasons, I'm very methodical when I pick a location to hike in when it's hot out. I want things that have a pretty wide cover of trees. Now that cuts off on the breeze that you'd be getting in more open areas, but I'm insulated from the sun. And then I'm also looking for areas that are in close proximity to water. That gives me the ability, one, to go through and refill my water. If I've emptied it out, I can go through and filter or purify and make more. Or in two, worst case scenario, if I do see that I'm getting into some of those heat related conditions, it gives me the ability to cool off really quickly. Next up is actually carrying a personal locator beacon, or at least having a way to call out and get help if you do start getting into some of these heat related conditions that are going to be more problematic. You know, ideally the easiest thing is having our phone. Sometimes we're not always in an area that we have a phone signal, so just at least have a backup plan. Next up, it's important to know the signs and symptoms of these heat related conditions. Per the CDC, we record in the high hundreds, low thousands of incidents of people having these conditions on an annual basis, so we definitely need to be mindful of this stuff. We'll talk initially on heat exhaustion because that's kind of that first phase. So heat exhaustion is going to be that heavy sweating, rapid pulse, faintness, dizziness, fatigue, maybe nausea, maybe headaches. We all seem to react a little bit differently with these heat conditions. Some of these symptoms are going to be more prominent with some people, less prominent with others. But that's generally what you're looking for. Now, as far as treating this, if you see this, it's going to be the basic stuff. I want to get out of the heat if I can. I want to stop whatever activity I'm doing, get in that shady spot, work on rehydrating, get fluids in me, try to cool myself back down. If I can get around that water, it makes cooling off significantly easier. Now, as we move up that paradigm and we get into what's called the heat stroke phase, all these conditions are going to get worse. You know, I'm probably looking now more like a throbbing headache. Dizziness has gotten worse. Nausea may have progressed on to vomiting, may not have. I may be, having bouts of confusion, disorientation, maybe anxiety. And at this point, my body temp is going up. And then we're starting to worry about more of the brain damage effect. It's going to be critical that we cool down as quickly as we possibly can. Again, hydration, get plenty of fluids in us, but this person, if they're at the heat stroke phase, they need to be evacuated. They need to come out of the woods quickly. Okay, that seemed like a very timely subject to jump on. I see more and more people out and about, post-COVID than we did pre-COVID. And sometimes we're just not equipped to be out there when the conditions are really bad. Definitely want everybody to be out there, but do it safely. So hopefully you found this helpful and beneficial. And if you're watching this from the trail right now, one, stop and sit down and sip a little water. Hopefully you're doing that while you're watching this video. But if not, just remember as always, left foot, right foot, repeat. We'll see you out there soon.